Rural Heritage on RFD TV is brought to you by Rural Heritage Magazine, a bi-monthly magazine featuring articles about farming and logging with draft animal power, small-scale diversified family farming and homesteading, and other aspects of our rich rural heritage. Rural Heritage Magazine, borrowing from yesterday to do the work of today. For subscription information, please call 319-362-3027 or order online at www.ruralheritage.com. Hi, I'm Joe Mishka. Welcome to another episode of Rural Heritage TV. The Rough and Tumble Engineers Historical Association is a museum organized to collect, preserve, restore, and exhibit the tools and related artifacts that commemorate agricultural and rural people, to perpetuate their work methods and daily lifestyle through the organization of an annual reunion to demonstrate these methods with the use of working machines and demonstrations. The engineers host a number of events each year in addition to the reunion at their showgrounds in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. The last major event they held in 2024 was the Time of Harvest Show in October. We were there to see some of the sights. So everything in this building pretty much are Rumely machines?
Mostly all Rumely family, Rumely affiliated, yes.
Okay, all right. And that includes?
That includes all the advanced Rumely machinery, the harvesters, everything in here is all Rumely. Even the Rumely 6, that's a Rumely 6, that's more of a modern standard tractor, runs on gasoline. Yep.
And is this a clover huller?
This is it's for grain.
Right.
It's a harvester for grain.
Yep. Right.
Yep. This belongs to a member of our club here, Keith Kulingle. Yep.
What was the lifespan of the Rumely tractors?
Rumely started building their tractors early 1900. Probably before 1910 they had the Rumleys moving, and they stopped building them around 1932 to 34. They were bought out by Alice Chalmers in 1934. That's when they were bought out. And at that particular point, that's how Alice Chalmers took some patents off of that Rumely 6
Sure.
there,
Right.
and they used that, and basically that's when they ended the Rumely era.
And what does oil pull mean?
Oil pull. Basically, oil pull is a term to state that they're oil cooled. These tractors are all oil cooled. These radiators, which is called a rad, basically is filled with oil, and in here are sheets which the oil flows down through, and it's pulled through the engine just like your modern everyday vehicle pulling antifreeze through. It's got its own pump and it pushes through. Now the cooling system is quite unique because the exhaust on the top of the engine, which comes out of the engine, goes into a large round burner inside here, and it forces the hot air up, which draws cold air from the bottom up like a chimney, draft on a chimney. That's how that works.
That's cool.
So there's no water in these, no antifreeze, just oil.
And can they burn a variety of fuels?
Well, you start them on gas, which we burn on gas here because we don't work them that hard. But if you were on this, you're using this as a field, you start this on gas, wait for the cylinders to warm up, and then you switch it over to kerosene. And then when you get out in the field and you start working it with the kerosene, there's a valve on there which you can open up, and it actually has water that goes in there, vaporizes with the kerosene, goes into the cylinders, gives you a little bit more horsepower, and it keeps the pistons cool.
Wow.
So that's the way that's worked.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it cools.
Cool. They were pretty clever back then, weren't they?
They were pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing that they could build all this stuff back then.
Without computers.
Without computers.
With slide rules and smarts.
Right.
And a pencil.
You have 3 different models of the oil pulls. There's the heavyweight, the lightweight, and then the super lightweight. They started all with the heavyweights, and you can distinguish the heavyweights over the lightweights. Basically these, let's go back on this one right here. As you can see, the iron frame, this is like an I-beam, it's like an I-beam frame, okay? Octagonal stack here as the chimney, as like an octagonal stack. And basically the tilt on the engine. This is an easy indicator of being a heavy weight. All right.
So the engine has a slope to it?
Well, just the front cover has a slope to it.
Gotcha.
When you pick it up with your eye, you can actually see, you know, that this is a heavyweight.
Right.
And then when you turn this is the next model. This is what you call a lightweight. They went to the pressed steel frame. Okay. The lightweights had the solid cast flywheels. The oil tank, which is a storage oil tank for your cooling system, is mounted in front of your engine, and the stack is short. Okay? And then when you move from the lightweight to the super lightweight, which is this one here, they went to the flywheel, spoked flywheel. They went spoked flywheel. They moved that oil chamber up here to keep it a little cooler. Because back there, it's back there by the exhaust, and the stack is a lot higher. Those are the easy ways to pick up the differences of the tractors.
We now have 4 volumes of America's Rural Yesterday books with photos of farm life 100 years ago. Fieldwork has images of horses in the fields working the ground, planting and harvesting the crop. Barn and Farmyard shows farmers putting that crop in the barn, silo or corn crib and caring for poultry, hogs, cattle and more. In At Home and in Town, farm families prepare Sunday dinner, relax in the parlor, drive to town by buggy or wagon and visit the general store. Finally, Early Tractors has over 250 photos of early American tractors like Alice Chalmers, Oliver, John Deere, Farmall, Minneapolis Moline, and many more. These photos are of new tractors back in the day and show how they were configured coming out of the factory. Buy any of these books for $24.95 plus shipping. When you buy 2 or more, the price per book goes down, all the way to $17.49 per book when you buy all 4. To order, just call 1-877-647-2452 or order online at www.ruralheritage.com. That's 877-647-2452.
Now, as far as horsepower, this is bored out a little bit more. You get a little more HP on Sazali than you do on the lightweights.
So it has 3 tanks. It has the oil tank, it has the water tank, and then there must be a...
Well, there's actually more than that. This is your water tank. This is your kerosene tank down here. This is your cooling tank. And on the back, I don't know if it has it here or not. Oh yeah. This is your starter tank.
Okay.
This is your starter tank. This is how you start the engine. You open the valve up on the mixer. They call these mixers. They don't call them carburetors.
Okay.
And basically, you open this valve up here, and then you pump this 2 or 3 times. It pushes gasoline up into the mixer. Okay, and then it drops down inside the cylinders, and that's the way you get it started. And from that point, after it's run a minute or two, a few minutes, and starts to get warm, then what you do is you shut off this valve here, and you turn on the kerosene valve. All right, and then out in the field again, basically you have a water valve also. This is the mixer. You can actually see inside the carburetor in these things. Really? It's pretty interesting. Sure you can. You can see right inside here. These are the pistons that draw the fuel up from the tanks. It's like a piston that goes up and down. As the crank turns, it turns the crank inside this mixer and pulls fuel up inside. From then, it goes to a needle valve. The needle valve in here, you can adjust the mixture of the fuel coming in. Okay, if you do too much fuel, then you got a lot of black coming out of the chimney because it's not burning it. If you do little fuel, then it's going to start barking at you because it wants fuel. So these are the needle valves. It's a very, very simple
way. So it's a little bit more of an art to finding the mix.
Absolutely, everyone's different.
Yeah,
everyone's different. Yeah,
and I suppose it's different on the load that it's pulling. And
absolutely.
Whether it's going up or down a grade.
Yeah, if you're pulling a load, if heavy loads are going to need more fuel. You know, if you're not pulling a load, then you can cut it back. That's for sure. There's your throttle right there. That's your throttle. You turn that to the right and it'll speed up the engine. This is your clutch. It's a hand clutch. You pull the hand clutch back to the notch. This is your transmission right here, your gear shift. Okay, in this particular model, there's 3 speeds forward, 1, 2, 3, and then reverse. So that's basically all this. You got your brake is here. This is your emergency brake here. Some of the models on the lightweights had what you call interlock, which locks both wheels together. There's usually a pedal right here that you push down to interlock. So if you get into soil which you're starting to spin, you'll have both of them turn at the same time.
Okay.
So,
Like posi traction.
correct. This is the air filter. It draws air in through here into the combustion area, drops down in, mixes the fuel, and that's the way that works. Have a compression release here. Basically, you pull this pin out. You pull the pin out and pull this up. What this does, it opens the valve so that it's not so hard to start your engine.
Okay.
Okay?
Doesn't need
it
it's
takes
not
off
fighting the pressure.
Correct. The compression. It cuts back the compression.
Yeah.
And then when you get it started, you can take and lock it back in. This way you got full compression again.
Cool. And it's got 2 spark plugs?
2 spark plugs. Correct. One over here and one over there. Runs on a magneto, which is charged by impulse that turns over from the engine.
What a neat machine.
They were very neat in their time. Very neat. Watch your step.
I will. And so do you have one of the very lightweights?
I do. I have, I've got 2 lightweights. I've got a heavyweight, the smallest one, the heavyweight, and I have the smallest one in the lightweight. I have a couple different ones. This right here is my R. This is a lightweight. This is a 2540 horsepower. And I know a lot of people don't understand what the 2 numbers mean, but the horsepower is rated 2540. The 25 means that it's got the pulling ability on the drawbar of 25 horse, and the belt is 40 horse to it. So a lot of people don't, I've had many people ask me, why 2 numbers?
Right.
So
Right.
now they know.
Yeah.
Now they know.
Tell me your name first.
I'll just go by Tom.
Okay.
So I'm not a camera person.
Okay, I got you.
Okay.
All right. I'll stop
much-
pointing it at you.
Too much Amish in me, I guess.
Okay.
So this is a 1913 C&G Cooper, tandem, double acting, natural gas engine driving a gas compressor. It was used to pump natural gas in a pipeline. There were 7 of these in the station that we removed this one from. The Medina, Ohio location was actually its second home. About the time of World War II, it apparently was relocated to Medina. And that's where it ran, and we think until sometime in the mid-'80s. One of our gentlemen here had been trying to get one of these engines for the organization, and the company was like, well, him and hawing about it. So finally they called him and said, if you want it, come and get it. You got 10 days to get it out because we're tearing the station down around it.
Wow.
So they organized a crew and went out, and they took things apart and jackhammered the concrete away from the foundations and loaded up 5 tractor trailers and brought it in here and put it in storage. They then dug the foundation because they could not find a contractor that was willing to do it. And there's 135 yards of concrete in the ground to support this. Then once that was done, and that was in 2003 when they finished with that, they started putting the big pieces on. So the bed casting where the crankshaft rides, the flywheel together, the crankshaft and the cylinders, and bolting things up. And then there was all the ancillary stuff. The exhaust valves had to go in, all the piping for the exhaust, the fuel gas in, the air to start it, the oiling systems, the electrical stuff, exhaust pipe out, air intake in, all that stuff had to be done, and that was several years further on. And we first had it running on its own with propane because there's no natural gas here. It would be happier on natural gas. At the spring show in 2013. So it's been running for 11 years.
That's a Herculean job.
Yes. Unlike an automobile where, one person can go and take parts off and work on them, there's not much that a single person can do. And
Right.
a lot of cases you need a front end loader or a forklift or a crane to move the parts around.
Absolutely.
So then some adjusting and wiggling and tuning, and none of our guys had actually run one or worked on one. One of our guys had actually seen engines like this and maybe this one in operation years ago. Before 9/11, you could kind of get into these places if you knew great words to use. But then it was like, okay, you can't get in any of these places. But they were still in use. We were fortunate enough to be in contact with Columbia Gas, where we got this. They tore out a station in Rockport, West Virginia over the summer of 2014. And they had 3 1,000 horsepower twin tandem double actings there. So this has 4 combustion chambers. A twin has 4 combustion chambers, a wider flywheel, and where we are is another 4 cylinders. So it made like 1,000, 1,200 horsepower. They were taking them out of service. They had still used those up until probably the spring of 2014.
Were those pumps as well?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of times we get asked what pressures and all, and every station is unique in what it's doing because it's looking at what the gas pressure is coming in, how much they're supposed to move, the pipe size, where the next station is, and all that. So they're all uniquely engineered. We believe this one is probably putting out between 275 and 300 pounds of gas pressure. Rockport, we had a lot more information about because they were actually, the operators were still there and we could quiz them on it.
Right.
They actually were pumping at 1,800 pounds of gas pressure. So, but they still use some kind of a natural gas burning piece of equipment to run the compressors to pump the gas. Some places it's a reciprocating engine. Some places it's actually a gas turbine.
Reciprocating engine is?
Like what you have in your car, like this,
Yep.
pistons going back and forth.
Gotcha.
Versus a turbine like a jet aircraft engine.
Gotcha. That's that a turbine spins with fins, basically, right?
Yes. So they run at higher speeds, and the compressors are, most cases, very much like the compressor section in the gas turbine where it compresses the air in. They're really expensive, but they run for a long time with very little maintenance. Where things like this would run for a long time, but they needed a lot of maintenance while they were running. And the newer engines need maintenance, but they also aren't going to last 111 years.
Can I step up there and
Sure.
look down in?
Yeah, just watch. It's not real stable there.
I gotcha.
It works very much like a 4-cylinder automobile engine, other than the pistons are going back and forth. The other thing that's different is that this fires on both sides of the piston. So if you think of a steam engine where they're putting steam in on either side of the piston to push it back and forth, that's what we're doing with combustion here. So the firing order is fires cylinder number 1, pushes the piston down, cylinder number 2 pushes it back, cylinder number 3 pushes it back, 4 goes back again, and then we start the process over. And that's 2 revolutions of the crankshaft. So some of the interesting features are that the intake valve assemblies up above, they are the intake valve, they are the throttle, and the carburetor.
Okay.
So you can actually adjust the fuel mixture in each one of these separately from the other. The piping that you saw in the center is part of the water cooling system in here. There's a water cooling system that supplies around the exhaust valves, goes up around the cylinders, and then goes out to be recirculated. Then there's another system that actually goes through the cylinder heads on this end, then goes through the pipes in the middle, and then through that piston and out, and then those cylinder heads on that end come through the center here and go through this piston and out. And the pistons are water cooled while they're running. And the reason for that is in a car you have crankcase oil splashing against the bottom of the piston to cool it. Here it's burning stuff on both sides.
Right.
So you have to cool it. It uses compressed air for starting it. Most all big engines had something like that. There's 2 oiling systems on it. We have pump lubrication that goes into the cylinders to lubricate as the pistons and the rings go back and forth. And then it also pumps oil into the seals at the ends of that rod that the piston's on. And then the other lubrication system is up here. There's that glass vial up at the top. So there's a pump, yes, there's a pump that pumps oil from a reservoir that we have up to there, and then from there it gravities down to all the sliding surfaces that support the pistons, as well as the main bearings and the connecting rod bearings. And that oil all gets caught back, goes down into a container down in the bottom here where it's allowed to let any dirt or water separate out. And then the pump picks it up, runs it back into our storage reservoir through filter bags, where it's then pumped back up again to there to gravity on out.
You probably told me, but I don't remember it. When do you think this was built and installed originally?
So it's a 1913 engine, and it's one of the first, they say, about 20 engines that C&G Cooper made. C&G Cooper made a huge number of these engines over many years, including some that were generators rather than for pumping natural gas.
Okay.
Of course, there you had to be on a pipeline for natural gas because they're thirsty. I don't remember the name of the town where it originally started, but it was moved about the time of World War II, 20 or 30 miles to Medina, Ohio, to the station where we actually were able to get it. So, of course, the intake valves are on the top. The air actually comes through the bed section here, and in the ground there's a pipe that comes out, it goes down through here, and up on the one, and then where the funnel is, that's the air.
This program is available for purchase. To order your copy, please call 319-362-3027 or visit www.ruralheritage.com. Rural Heritage is a bi-monthly magazine dedicated to draft animal farming and logging, as well as other aspects of our rich rural heritage. It is published by Mishka Press, which also offers a complete line of Back to the Land books, DVDs, and calendars. Call or write for a catalog or subscription information, or visit our website at www.ruralheritage.com.